Hey there, and welcome to the Girl Means Business podcast, the show that's all about helping photographers just like you build a thriving business without sacrificing your sanity. I'm your host, Kendra Swalls, a former teacher turned full-time photographer and marketing coach, here to fill your earbuds each week with practical tips, real-life stories, and a whole lot of encouragement. So if you're ready to dive in, let's get to it because this girl means business. Hey there, and welcome back to the Girl Means Business podcast. It just hit me as I was getting ready to record this that by the time this comes out, it will already be October. And I don't know how that has happened. I feel like we should still be at the beginning of September, and yet here we are at the beginning of October, which, side note, happens to also be my birthday month. So that's exciting. But the idea that we are getting into the Burr months, September, October, November, December, is so exciting, but also feels a little overwhelming at times because there's so much that goes into the fall. There's a lot that happens in the fall. If you are in the beginning of your busy season, you know that feeling of kind of the overwhelm and the never ending to-do list. And add on top of that, holidays and school activities and all the things. It can feel like a lot. And one of the things that I have seen that I know personally for me, and I've seen this through photographers I've talked to, through members inside of my greenhouse coaching program, the conversation a lot of times when things start to feel overwhelming or just like we're taking on too much is we end up getting this imposter syndrome mixed with comparison. And so that is what I wanted to talk about in this week's episode, because I want to help you sort of navigate and maybe even cut off some of those feelings that may come up as we're going through this busy season. When we start looking at what everyone else around us is doing, or we start to feel like maybe our processes aren't really conducive to what is making us feel like we're being productive, or we're just kind of in that rut of like, oh my gosh, am I doing enough? Am I good enough? Am I creative enough? Am I technical enough? Like all the different things. There's a million ways that we can be comparing ourselves to those around us. So the other day, what kind of sparked this idea a little bit was the other day, I have a really good friend that I do photography with. So I help her with just sort of the organizational, the business side of her business, and then also assisting her at sessions. And she does something completely outside of what I do in my business, and we're really good friends. And it's just nice to have somebody that you can, work alongside of and be a part of, but not feel like you are in competition with each other. And in our small town that we live in, she kind of has, I don't want to say the monopoly, but she has a very tight stronghold on the sports side of things. So a lot of what she does is media days and sideline photos and team photos and all those kinds of things. And so that's kind of become her sort of her niche, her genre. So the other day I'm scrolling through Facebook and I noticed another local business owner has posted that they are in our area, the same area we are in. And she is saying that she has started doing photography. She wants to get into doing sports photography. And she was offering to do some team photos or like sideline photos for upcoming games. And I was talking to my photographer friend about this, and I mentioned it to her, and she got a little bit upset by this, which surprised me because her work is incredible. She, what my friend does is very specific and niched, and it's not something that just anybody with a camera can like walk in and do. It takes a lot of learning and a lot of skill and a lot of time and a lot of equipment. And, it's not something that is just as simple as walk up with a camera and get the kind of images that she does. But even after all of this time and all of the praise and all of the accolades and all the things that she has been given that should tell her that she is at the top of her game and that she has no worries about competing photographers in this space where she's at. And even if she did have other people doing what she does, like she has connections and she's built relationships that other people aren't going to have when they come in new to this area. Even with all of that, she went into a bit of a spiral. And, we talked through it and I was like, it's fine. Like, this is normal. You're good. It's okay to feel this way. But, and I kind of told her all the things I just was saying to you, like, you have this and you've done this and you've worked through this and you understand this and all these things. And even with all of that, there was still that little voice in the back of her head that was saying, like, you're not good enough. And if given the option, people are going to choose her over you. And that's a scary place to be, because not only is it not valuing what you've done or what she's done, it is scary because it also puts you in this kind of fear mindset. And when you are trying to grow your business out of fear versus out of like a growth mindset, it does not work. It causes you to make choices in your business that you probably would not make if you were feeling more confident in what you were doing. And so because of that, it really got me thinking about this whole comparison thing and what it is that goes on in our brains and in our business that makes us fall into this. Because honestly, and I will be 100% transparent here, I still have these moments. I just had this moment this morning as I was getting ready to record this episode. As I was going through, and I recently had an incredible boudoir session that I absolutely loved. And unfortunately, with boudoir, you can't share a lot of the photos that you have. And I was kind of online and I came across another boudoir photographer who had these stunning images. And she has this big, beautiful, dreamy studio and this incredible like hair and makeup space and a whole wardrobe closet and like a waiting area and an assistant photographer. And her clients are, top tier clients or high end clients. And granted, she's not in this area, she lives in a different state. But I still started finding myself falling into this idea of like, oh, well, yeah, I can't compete with that. Like, look at what she's doing and look at what she has. And I'm in this little home studio space in this little small town in Texas. Like, how can I compete with that? So we still all have those moments. I don't want you to think that I am speaking to you as someone who has never felt this or no longer feels this, or I've conquered this in my business. It's still there. And I still have days where it like creeps in and I allow it to kind of get in my head. But the difference is I have trained myself well enough to know that when I start to feel and recognize these things creeping in, I have strategies in place. I have things that I have done that I can do that help kind of pull me out of that or turn it into something beneficial in my business. And so that's what I want to walk through today is kind of that process of when I find myself starting to go down that comparison road and I start to find myself slipping into that slippery slope of I could see this spiraling into negative thoughts and negative actions in my business, then I'm able to flip that around, turn it into inspiration, turn it into a learning moment. And how have I done that? And how do I continue to do that in my business? So the first thing and the first step in this is recognizing and becoming very aware of what it is that is triggering this comparison. So what I like to do is when I start to have this feeling of, and we all know that feeling of like, oh gosh, this is like, I'm starting to feel bad about myself. I'm starting to feel bad about my work or my business or my whatever it is that we're comparing. This could even apply to like personal life. Stop and think like, okay, what has just occurred that is triggering this comparison feeling? Is it a person, like someone that you are physically spending time with, that maybe is another photographer or someone who, you find yourself comparing yourself to personally or professionally in a lot of ways? Was it you were scrolling on social media? That is a big trigger for me. I know that like if I go on social media, 99% of the time I leave and I click out of the apps feeling less confident than I did when I started scrolling. So I've learned that, and I've learned to kind of put some parameters in place and do some things that have helped with that. And I'll go over some of those. but social media is definitely a really big one. Is it something like an event that you're attending? Is it something you were watching? Is it, every time you get into like an editing rabbit hole where you start going down and learning about like editing styles and you change up your editing style, or you start looking at other people's editing style? Like, what are the things, like, what are the triggers that typically set you into this spiral? Once you can recognize what those are, it makes sort of avoiding them or navigating them a whole lot easier. So, like I mentioned before, the social media thing for me, I was finding that a lot of like Facebook groups that I was a part of was causing comparison. A lot of the accounts that I was following on social media, on Instagram, were causing comparison. Some of even my personal family and friends that I was following were causing comparison. And one of the best things I've done to help avoid this going forward is I decluttered my social media. I went through my Instagram, I went through my Facebook, and I was like, if I look at your feed, if I look at your content, and the majority of the time it makes me feel less than, or it makes me feel jealous, or it makes me feel whatever sort of way that is negative in my opinion, then I unfollowed. Or I would limit how much I would see. There's, especially in Facebook, there's controls, there's buttons you can push that will limit how often, or you can snooze their content. Or the best thing on Facebook is you can unfollow someone without unfriending them. And so you can still have them in your friend list and they're no wiser, but you don't see their content. And that's one of the best things that I've done is for my personal side is I have unfollowed a lot of people that I found I was comparing myself to. And then on the Instagram side, I went in and there were just accounts I was following, and I was following them for the reason basically of I wanted to see what they were doing, but every time I did, it made me feel bad about what I was doing. And so I was like, I don't need this in my life. I don't need that kind of input. We get to choose what comes into our brains each day. And when we just kind of allow social media to be this like floodgate of information and content, and we think we're doing a favor to our friends or other businesses by following their accounts, but then it just causes us to feel worse about our business, then we're not really benefiting anybody. So it's okay to click that unfollow button. The other thing I've done around social media is I have limited my time. One of the things I found is that most days I was picking up my phone at random times of the day, sitting at a stoplight, or when I was, editing photos and just needed to take like a mental break, I'd pick up my phone. That was the first thing I did. I realized how often I was clicking on that Facebook button or that Instagram button without even realizing that's what I was doing. And then I'm consuming content and I'm letting it affect the rest of my day. So
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Imagine this. It's a Wednesday morning. You've just finished listening to a podcast episode, maybe even this one, and your head is swirling with so many new ideas for your business. But at the same time, you're feeling a little overwhelmed and confused on what actually you need to be focusing on, or if these new ideas you have are even worthwhile. Now imagine that in the midst of your overwhelming confusion, you can pick up your phone and directly message your personal marketing coach to get clarity, feedback, and inspiration to help you know exactly what's going to keep you on target to grow your unique photography business. Well, the good news is that's exactly what you're going to be able to do very soon inside of my newest offer, The Greenhouse. The Greenhouse is a personalized coaching membership that allows you direct access to me as your marketing coach for your business, along with a community of other photographers there to cheer you on, support you, and be with you every step of the way. Now, if you are just looking for quick fixes, viral hacks, or another online course that you'll probably never finish, then this is not the place for you. But if you are tired of feeling like you're doing everything on your own, you're craving real support, community, and clear direction in your business, then you belong inside the greenhouse. However, the founding member launch is going to be a very short window of time and very exclusive. So if this is something that sounds like what you need in your business, I would love for you to join the waitlist so that you get early access along with some exclusive bonuses. So head down to the show notes, click the link, and get signed up. I cannot wait to see you inside the greenhouse when the doors open soon. Realized was that I can control that. Like, that is something that I have power over, and I only have myself to blame if I'm allowing this to continue to happen. And so I took Facebook primarily because that was my main source. I took Facebook off of my phone. Like, I don't have the Facebook app on my phone. If I want to log into Facebook, I do it from my computer. And there are a few times that this has been kind of an annoyance. Like, if I'm trying to look up something really quick and I'm not at my computer and I want to be able to hop onto Facebook. The other thing that I have seen people do, and I haven't done this, but I've thought about doing it, is hiding it in a folder on my phone because I'm less likely to scroll to an actual folder and click on it. When it was like one of the primary buttons on my home screen of my phone, it was too easy to just open my phone and like my thumb would immediately go to Facebook or whatever. So hiding it in a different folder is another really good way to do it and just make it more challenging. So you have to kind of follow, like you have to go through steps to get to that app. It becomes more intentional and less just mindless. Instagram is not as much of an issue for me personally, because my Instagram is more curated to things that I actually enjoy and I want to see content for. But Facebook was that space for me. And so just being able to kind of take that distraction away has been really, really, really helpful. So the next thing I want to talk about is the second reason that you might be finding yourself falling into this comparison trap. And a big one I've seen through talking to other photographers is a lot of times we fall into comparison and imposter syndrome when we don't feel like we have clarity around our own business. And so, and I've experienced this myself, where you are in kind of a space in your business where you're like, I just don't feel really 100% confident in this. It's not something that I feel like I am really good at. Maybe it's not a strength in my business. And so I see other people doing it and I feel like I need to be focusing more on that. Basically, anytime that there's an insecurity that I know I feel in my business, it is like open wound for comparison. So if I feel like I am struggling in my editing process and I go online and I see these other photographers who are just killing it with these incredible edits, I'm going to start to compare and feel less than. So knowing and recognizing like what are kind of those areas of your business that you are maybe struggling with, or you feel like you're not where you want to be, then that's open game for comparison. And so tightening those things up, figuring out like, okay, if I know that I feel insecure about my pricing structure, or even, my giving digitals versus IPS, like if that's something that I personally am struggling with on like, is this right for my business? Then I'm going to be open and subject to feeling less than when I see other people doing other things. So the more confident you can be in your business, the less the comparison can start to come in, because you have a solid foundation of what you're standing on. So for example, I feel extremely confident in my pricing. I feel extremely confident in the way my packaging is set up, the way that I structure my pricing model, all of those things I feel really confident in. So I don't feel like when I see someone else doing something different, it doesn't set anything off in me for that. However, I do feel like I am not as confident when it comes to things like social media. So I don't love social media. I don't want to be on social media, but I still have these little moments where I will see someone who is just doing incredibly well on social media. And I'm like, oh man, I could maybe do that. Like maybe that could be something that's helping my business. But then I am able to reel it back in. I'm able to come back and say, no, that's not the model that I stand on. That is not the business model that I follow. I lean on X, Y, and Z. I lean on social SEO. I lean on email marketing and nurturing and networking and things like that. I don't have to rely on social media. But again, there's those little moments, those little cracks in our brand. But the more confident you are, the fewer cracks you have. And everybody's going to have little cracks. Even ones who are, highly successful photographers are going to have something that is going to possibly trigger comparison in their business. But the less cracks we have, the more confident we are in what we're doing in our business, the easier it is to walk away from the things that are going to create that insecurity and that comparison. The third thing that typically can trigger this mindset, and this goes back to the story I told at the beginning of my local sports photographer friend, is the idea of small town marketing. So the idea of small town marketing is that if you have 1,000 people that live in your town and you're the only photographer who does X, Y, or Z, then you have the monopoly on that audience. If someone else moves in and they also offer what you offer, you no longer have a monopoly, and now you're afraid that half of your audience is going to go to this other person. That is not accurate, just solely not accurate, because there are more than enough clients to go around. So let's say that you have this, the photographer who lives in a town of 1,000 people. One person cannot photograph 1,000 people in a year. Like, it's just not physically possible. It's not going to happen. And so even if half of those clients move off to someone else, that's okay. 500 people is still too many for one person to handle. So this idea that there's not enough clients to go around is just not true. You think about, like, I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. There are so many people in the entire Dallas-Fort Worth area, but then you even narrow it down more to like where I live, the area of the Metroplex I live in, there are still so many people. And a good example I give of this, because it's a little bit easier to kind of hone in on, is if you're a senior photographer. And let's say that there are 5 high schools in your area, like within a certain radius of where you live, that you could potentially get clients from. And let's say that each of those 5 high schools have 300 seniors in their graduating class, okay? You're looking at 1,500 seniors just in your one little area. That's way too many that you could potentially photograph. Now, let's say you're like, well, I only photograph girls. Okay, well, let's divide that in half. You're still looking at 750 high school senior girls within your area. Again, unless you photograph 2 seniors every single day for an entire year, you're not going to hit the mark. Like, you're not going to be able to photograph all 750. So this idea that you have to be the sole photographer in your area is not necessary. And you're going to find that, like, again, going with the whole senior photographer thing, maybe you really love the like fun, girly, kind of glam type photos. And those are the clients you want to appeal to, the ones who want to get all dolled up with hair and makeup and outfits and cute shoes, and they want to do all the things. That's only, again, a small portion of the audience. When you have another photographer who's like, yeah, I really like the ones who are like, the musicians, the band nerds, the bookworms, like the ones who want to go and like just be themselves, and they want to like go into a bookstore or a record store or, do something really creative and unique, and they're wearing jeans and tennis shoes. Like, that may not be your style. There's a photographer for them, and you're the photographer for this other group, and that's okay. And so going back to this idea of when I was talking to my photographer friend here in our town, that's what I told her. I was like, hey, listen, like, you're already struggling to keep up with the clients that you have. And so if she wants to come in and there's a handful of families that want to work with her, that's okay. Like, it's not going to affect your business because you already have a really solid client base here and you have more clients than you can actually handle. And that's a good thing. It's a good problem to have, but that she's not going to take away from what you have. And you've also built relationships. And this is why relationship marketing is what I am founded on. And I love relationship marketing because it comes down to you are building connections with people that is going to outweigh any marketing strategy you could possibly post online. If you are building actual relationships with your clients and your potential clients, then they're going to choose you over somebody else every time. And, like that's just how it's going to work. And so if you are someone who is like, I only post randomly on Instagram and I hope that people want to hire me, I encourage you to start building relationships in your community. Get involved, get your face out there, like talk to actual people and build those connections because that's what's going to help set you apart. It's also going to help give you a peace of mind to know that you have those relationships to fall back on. The last thing I want to say here is when you find yourself going down that rabbit hole of comparison and you're just kind of in this spiral of like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to live up to what I see other people doing. I am never going to be that good, or I'm never going to be good at this area. Turn it into inspiration. Instead of turning it into a woe is me, I'm never going to live up to this. I'm not good, blah, blah, blah. I want you to flip the script and I want you to say, what is it about her business or his business or this business that I really appreciate and think that they're doing really well? And how can I take what they're doing and apply that to my own business? And I find that I've started, like, the more I've given myself this prompt, the more it happens subconsciously. So like earlier today when I was online and I came across this boudoir photographer whose work was incredible, I was looking at the photos and I was looking at what it was that I was like really drawn to and I was comparing myself to. And I thought, okay, I'm going to use this as inspiration. I really love this one like setup that she had in her studio. How can I incorporate some of those same concepts into my studio so I feel like I have something that's a change of pace, it's something different? Or I really love her poses. I love how just emotive they are and they feel like very fluid. They're not like super stiff in pose. And so how can I study what she's doing in posing and apply it into my next session? So things like that, flipping that conversation in our brain from woe is me, she's better than me, I'm never going to be that good, to how can I use this to inspire me to grow in my own business? Because bottom line, comparison's always going to be here. It's just human nature. It's kind of what we do. And so if we can allow it to come in, but then control it and monitor it and flip it around into something productive and beneficial, then it becomes less of this thing that we're fighting against. And it's something that we are saying, hey, it's okay to compare. It's okay to look and admire what other people are doing, but I'm going to use it for good, not evil. That's the ultimate goal. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I hope you found this helpful. I would love for you to let me know any thoughts, questions, or ideas you have on this topic or any other topic here on the podcast. You can shoot me an email at kendra@girlmeansbusiness.com or come find me anywhere on social media and send me a DM. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will see you back here next week, same time, same place.